Hi, my name is Dennis Jin, UR14CS319, and I am here to do the seventh experiment of DBMS, which is PLSQL programming. Our aim here is to implement PLSQL programming using triggers and cursors. What is PLSQL? It's a combination of SQL along with the procedural features of programming languages. Um, it's one of the three key programming languages embedded in Oracle database along with SQL itself and Java. And so our first question is to create a simple trigger that does not allow insert, update, deletion, delete options on the supplier table. So what a trigger is that a trigger is a special kind of stored procedure that automatically executes when an event occurs in the database server. The triggers execute when a user tries to modify data through a data manipulation language event. So in this case, we're told not to allow insert, update, and delete operations. So our code here is create trigger T1 before insert on supplier 1 for each row declare var1 number 4. Begin if if news underscore id is equal to s1 and news s underscore aaa, then dbms output put line this cannot be inserted, roll back, and if n create trigger t2 before delete on supplier 1 for each row declare var1 number. And likewise we listed an output saying that this cannot be inserted for each of the insert, update, and delete operations. Here we are talking about the update option. Here delete. In the second code, we're applying the code for deletion. Here it's for insertion, and lastly here it's for updation. As you can see here, our output says that when we execute this, it shows a compilation error. It tells us it cannot be inserted due to the syntax. Create a trigger to ensure that does not contain duplicate. So we create trigger T4 after insert on supplier 1 for each row. Declare, we give few variables. Begin, under the begin tab we have if exists, select star from table supplier 1. Inner join inserted I on I underscore ID is equal to supplier I underscore ID, and IS underscore date is equal to supplier I underscore date. Begin, rollback, raise error, duplicate data, and if end. So this basically this statement over here sees if there's any matches between the data, and if there is such a match, the error is raised. Thus it creates a trigger to ensure that does not contain duplicate data. As you can see here, the trigger has elicited an output that says invalid and failed revalidation. So moving on, create a trigger that raises a user-defined error message and does not allow updating a border table. So here the first time we create a trigger called error message before update on supplier 1 for each row. Declarations are given. Begin if new.order ID is lesser than 110, then declare dummy int integer, select error, give that, into dummy from order where order1.id is equal to new ID. And then we have the end if statement followed by the end. So what this basically does, it creates a trigger that raises a user-defined error message, which is error you cannot update, and does not allow updating the order table. So this basically blocks the user from updating the order table, and also it gives a slight error. It gives an error when you try to update the order table. Again, an error is raised because it cannot be updated. Fourth question is to write a PLSQL script to display the supplier details who has a PID greater than 3. So create procedure P1 P1 underscore 261 number default as V underscore number begin. Select count star into V count from supplier 1 where PID is greater than 3. If P1 CS 261 is null, then DBMS output is S1 and then the PID. DBMS output line name is equal to S underscore name, and thus we put the gender as date and PID. Else we select count star into V count from supplier 1 where PID is greater than 3, end if and end. So what this code does is it displays the supplier details who has PID greater than 3, and so that is displayed here. The fifth question is to write a PLSQL script to display the product names whose order quantity is greater than 10 using cursors. So our syntax is here create procedure P2 and then declare the as begin and if statements. We have select count star into V1 count from order quantity where order quantity is greater than 10. If P1 is null, then DBMS output line is product ID and product ID. Else select count star into V1 underscore count from order quantity where order quantity is greater than 10. We end with an end if statement. And that basically gives us the product names whose order quantity is greater than 10 using cursors. Our sixth question is to write a trigger to update the order table whenever the customer ID is updated in the customer table. So whenever the customer ID is updated in the customer table, we have to initiate a trigger statement. So create trigger T1 after update on customer 1 for each row. Begin if new.customer ID is not equal to old customer ID, then update order 1. Set o.customer ID to new.customer ID where o.order underscore ID is equal to new.id. We end with an end statement, and this would update the order table. It would trigger an update. It would trigger and the trigger would be sent off if an update to the order table is done. The customer table. The code elicits a trigger to update the order table whenever customer ID is updated in the customer table. The seventh question is to write a PLSQL block to display the implicit cursor for any of the two of the given table. So we start off with a declaration, um, in which we have a total rows number, data type, begin, update order quantity, set order quantity is equal to order quantity plus 5. If SQL is not found, then DBMS output line is no order selected. Else if SQL found, then total rows is equal to SQL row count. DBMS output put line total rows and order selected. We end if and end. Yeah, and then we have declaration again. Total rows begin update. Set the begin to update set if, and give an output saying no product selected if SQL not found. Else if SQL ampersand found, then total rows is equal to SQL ampersand row count. DBMS output dot put line total rows product selected, and we end with an end if. And this code is this block is to display an implicit cursor for any of the two given a table. An implicit cursor is opened by the database to process each SQL statement that is not associated with an explicit cursor, and every SQL implicit cursor has 6 attributes, each of which returns useful information about the execution of a data manipulation statement. So as you can see, the 6 attributes are given here, and it elicits an output that displays the implicit cursor for any of the two given table. Our next question is to write a PLSQL block to display an explicit cursor for any of the two of the given table. Explicit cursors are it's defined in the declaration section of the PLSQL block. It is created on the select statement, which returns more than one row. We can provide a suitable name for the cursor, and yeah, we have a few elements to create the explicit cursor, namely the declaration declared. We declare the data types here along with the variables. Cursor customer c dot underscore customer on is select customer underscore ID customer name address from customer one. We give our begin statement. Open c customer one loop. Fetch fetches the data from cursor into the PLSQL variables or records in the execution statement. We have close the cursor close the cursor in the execution block before you end the PLSQL block. And so close c underscore customer one and end, and that would give us our PLSQL block to display an explicit cursor for any two of the given table. As you can see, it's successfully completed, and that concludes our 7th experiment. Thank you.